bro. He did that yesterday and dropped the mic afterwards.
I'm off to a better start than I was yesterday. Anyway.
Well, I like it.
So
progress.
Speaking of censorship, my buddy actually had in
boy.
in one of his stories, it had this little blurb. It was a text blurb, and then the next story is the same text blurb, but Instagram has like blacked out one of the words and is like, actually, we've edited this post on someone else's feed because it was found this part of it was untrue.
Yeah, I had a moment actually the other day. Since you're on the topic, I don't want to stay here too long, but
Yeah, no, same.
I went to reply to someone's comment, and it wouldn't let me at them because they'd spread misinformation about the pandemic too many times.
Oh, boy.
Like they had said things about the pandemic that weren't true as they fact checked too many times, and now you can't at them. And I'm thinking, how is this a punishment? Like
To them, it matters.
But like, it's like I would never care about not being able to be added by someone.
dude. I
Jeremy,
don't know
voices
about
on the
that.
right are being silenced, and they're very sensitive.
Well, I don't even like, but
Hey, to
but
be
like,
fair,
I didn't
voices
look
on all
into.
sides are being censored currently.
I didn't look into any of
Just
this.
heavy on the right.
It was just a weird, like, because they were commenting on my tattoos, right? So I'm just commenting like, "Oh, thank you" or whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was, honestly. And I got this flag: you can't talk to this person because they did this.
Well, think about this, though. You got added by Inked Magazine yesterday.
Oh,
And-
you can get tagged. I don't know if they could get tagged or not, but
I'm just saying, if all of a sudden that communication, they get a little blurb that says, hey, this dude's doing this. Do you think
Yeah.
they're doing an article on you?
oh, I hear you. But
Like, that's the wild thing about this, if you're just providing that socially, like social information, it's not even like a score or a rating system. I mean, and technically it is, though. Like, if you just even give the information that, hey, this person is doing this, just so you know, that person's now blacklisted, because the amount of people that will then like push them forward in any way, shape, or form is like, whoa, hang on.
so I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that it's some detriment, but like most people don't give a crap.
Most, yeah.
Like what would you care if? Okay, so now you're a tattoo artist, so now it would matter maybe a little.
Yes.
But like if you were just doing Kevin, like working, say you're at Long McQuaid, you're just doing Kevin things, right?
Yeah.
What do you care that you can't be added?
I mean, it just is one of those, like, when people don't, like, when they get told they can't come to the party
Fair.
kind of thing. Like, I don't even know if it really actually matters, but I think perceptually, with engagement and people, like, I think it would probably make people feel cast aside kind of thing pretty quickly. Like, they would be like a social outcast. I think it would probably push them more to that type of behavior, because it kind of validates their feeling that someone's out to get them, and making them feel like the other.
My thing is it's like they can still comment though, and I can still see what they're saying.
Yeah, eventually.
But I'm
that
not
will
allowed
be-
to reference like I could still respond to the comment if I took their name out of it.
It seems
okay.
like just an effective way of pissing them off, and that's all.
Yeah, it was just like
It's like this way they're gonna feel vindicated for posting all that crap.
It's
Here
like
we
a
go.
little slap on the wrist kind of thing.
and then I also kind of was like, okay, but is this like sort of like an accusation that I'm part of that?
Yeah.
Because like I'm responding to this person who said things that they didn't like.
Then it's exactly working.
Like it's almost like talking to this person makes me an accessory to murder in their eyes.
I mean, eventually it will, yeah.
Which is
eventually you'll have
bizarre.
these, like, it'll be like, like in hockey, it's like you get a goal and an assist.
Yeah.
It'll be like that, like you assisted.
but like
It's like less like,
Assisted.
yeah, it's like you get 1 point rather than like 3.
this is why like with like Instagram and like social media in general, we'll say, because I'm not on all of them.
Assisted.
Like you really can't keep up with how fast this stuff is rolling out.
No.
Because there's every chance that you guys will never encounter that. Right? Like there's every chance that 100 people won't ever encounter that thing that happened there. Because that's the only one time I respond to all my comments over time, right? I get to them all. So like I've only had it happen once. So like how many little things that they've rolled out that you just can't be even aware of? It's like how the hell are you supposed to keep track of it?
Well, I mean, you're not
That's why
supposed to
you're
keep track of it.
like,
That's probably
big companies will hire these social media managers, and it makes sense to me because it's like this shit is moving so fast. No
yeah.
one can keep up with it.
Yeah.
Get ready to be left behind, boys.
Man, honestly, it's like I from a very early point, I was like, okay, well, as I get older, I'm going to just make sure that I'm staying with things as best I can because like, you know, my parents, my grandparents, like they're just not able to keep up with this stuff, and it makes it so that certain things, certain fairly important things like banking, become way too
taxing.
Yeah.
It's like,
and it's like,
I don't want
okay, learn this language now in order to be able to just do the thing that you've done for your whole entire life. Like we kind of have to keep on that stuff, but I find myself, I'm lagged way behind. I say I won't get into the meta thing, but like, probably will at some point.
We probably all will have to, really.
Yeah. Like I just saw the other day, what I've been talking about forever, I just saw NFT sleeves. I just saw a tattooer started posting his first NFT
I've heard
sleeve
of that.
to be for sale in that metaverse. A big name tattooer.
Yeah,
and it was one of those,
Lee's
like,
been talking about it.
yeah,
already.
I just saw my first one of it where I was just like, what the fuck? It's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, cool, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Like, it's just a
there's been an
procreate
argument to be made, and there will be an even bigger argument to be made. I wrote about this like years ago. I wrote a caption about this back in like 2018, and it was one of the few that people actually read and really liked about how we're living more online than we are in person, and the person that we create online is becoming like our avatar.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a lot more complicated than that, but I mean, I'm not taking credit for this thought by any means, but I thought about that like 4 years ago. Like, there's going to be a time where we're literally engaging with the world more online than in person, and we're doing it gradually. Like, and some of us are doing it more than others. God knows. Like, I would be on the higher end of the three of us, but I'm on the lower end comparatively to what's out there. Like, there are people who are basically sitting in their houses on their computer or their phone forever. Like,
sad.
just like in like on Twitch streams and stuff for 12 hours.
Oh yeah.
Right. And they've got a VTube, like an avatar created. Sometimes it's like just a computerized version of them. Other times it's as extreme as like, I'm a donkey now, right?
Yeah.
This is I'm a donkey, but it has my facial features or whatever. But like, people are choosing to engage this way already.
Well, it's like
I'm just picturing them in World of Warcraft, like as a donkey.
yeah, pretty well.
Yeah, well, what would it be? They would be playing World of Warcraft, and their avatar would be on the screen. So, like, they would be, say, you've got like a donkey theme, right? And there are people who do stuff like that. That's not even that far fetched. Like,
Nope.
I've seen one who was a weasel. Like, his channel was called like Yaw Weasel or something.
No weasel.
I only know about this stuff mainly because of my coworker. He's super into VTubing, and I really think that like that is going to be the way a lot of this stuff goes. It may not be that nerdy in the long run, but like it's all going to be derivative of that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
nerdy.
Sounds mega nerdy.
Sure, but like these things kind of, the nerds always have them first.
Yeah, of course.
And then they influence culture.
And I'm not saying nerd pejoratively. I'm just saying.
I was gonna say, can you say the nerds like that?
Uh-oh.
Are we venturing into dangerous territory?
I don't say it in any.
Do we need a disclaimer?
Dude,
I
I'm a
don't say
nerd in
it
a
in
lot
a
of areas of my
derogatory
life.
way.
I like nerd behavior. It's just
so do
passion.
I.
It's just passion in a particular area that people are.
I nerd about lots of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like the nerd in this case isn't derogatory. It's
No.
just like anyone who's at the mecca of something
Yeah.
and they're really tunneling in on it. That always ends up coming down after that to everyone else.
I
It's
still
like,
think we should name this episode "The Nerds" with big
well,
quotation
we can
marks.
certainly
around
do
it.
that.
We should probably start naming episodes.
That sounds great.
Well, even the one that we did where I put the Kelowna was a wild time. That
Yeah.
got better traction than
yeah.
because at least it was a loose premise.
Well, and a tagline is going to draw people in.
Sure.
I
Yep.
mean, I don't even think it was mostly like there was nothing in there about it being
I
a
think we
wild.
should just. I think we should just make it like really clickbaity titles that have nothing to do with what we talked about. Just to be
Oh.
like Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson, and like that's the title. And just like okay,
That's not too far off. Kelowna was a wild
yeah,
time.
I know 'cause we barely talked about it.
I know. We spent like 5 minutes talking about
Yeah.
that. But what I would like to talk a little bit about is that podcast that will probably never see the light of day.
Oh my god.
Which is
Well, we're never gonna get that
for
thing.
all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
Which might be my favorite horrible podcast ever.
Yeah.
Like
I just wanna
certainly
hear
that
it.
I've been a part of.
If I could just hear it, like we could even just put out an audio version if we wanted to.
Do you have to fill the audience in on what podcast you're referring
Yeah.
to?
So when I was in Kelowna, I did a podcast with Lee and another artist at the shop, Gary. But I was thinking, like, because Gary would drive us home from the shop some nights, and Gary and Lee banter, and their banter is hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's absolutely hilarious. You could just put a camera on them without them knowing, and that would go viral. Like, they were arguing about banshees and werewolves and all kinds of shit. I'm just in the back just cackling and adding a little line in here or there, and I was thinking, this is going to be a great podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But then Gary barely talked. Like, I had to lob him softballs to get him into the conversation.
Yeah.
He was not the same cat.
No.
On
He likes-
camera.
yeah, he's
Same
he gets
wolf.
shy pretty quick when it comes to those things. As soon as you get a camera on him, he's like, he kind of shies up.
And the conversation was a little stilted, so I had to kind of keep breathing life into it. But not because Lee wasn't in it. Like, Lee was super in it, but it was more of like an interview show for him, I think. Like, where he would ask questions or I would ask him a question, and it was just very like we would get to the end of a
Ask question, answer question.
yeah, and then we would get to the end of something, and then there'd be this second where it was like, I'm gonna have to pivot this, and then I would like bring Gary back in. Like, so what do you think about this, like Gary, or try and include him, because he would just kind of just be listening and not really contributing, and I was just like, huh. And we had camera problems, and our audio died like 3 times too. So it was in like four to 5 pieces by the end, and it's trapped in Kelowna.
Yeah.
And this thing
Half
will
of it
never
is.
see the light of day.
No, definitely not.
Some
Goodbye,
parts of it
lost
were done
episode.
on a really nice camera, so it looked really good, and then other parts of it were on a phone, so it looked okay. So I was like, if this even does get pieced together, it's going to be a Frankenstein monster.
This 22 minutes is 37 gigabytes.
We did-
This other 40 minutes is 32 megabytes.
We did like
Weird.
2 hours, and Lee wanted to keep going. Like, he was invested in it. It's just such a shame it will never be seen.
Yeah, I was thinking that as I was sending you out there with that stuff, I was like, man, this is not going to work. It's like, it's not that it couldn't. It's just that it
But
won't.
Traditionally, audio's been the issue. So with the right audio thing, it blows my mind you couldn't just
Got an
iPhone
hour
it,
of
have
it.
it go. But it's trying all that new
Well, see,
tech.
the thing is, we only do an hour in the morning,
Yeah.
right? I've never really gone like, hey, we're going to do 3.
Although we got close one time.
Yeah, that's true. But that was a little different.
That was one of the most boring podcasts to watch back.
Really?
I watched the whole thing back.
I don't watch any of these.
That was a long time ago. I don't watch them anymore.
That was
that's
quite
fair.
some time ago.
That was like December 2020,
Yeah.
2021. No,
Speaking
I don't know.
of-
It was a fresh lockdown. We just like had time to kill.
Yeah,
right?
2020.
It was just Wednesday morning. We're just sitting here for like 3 hours.
Our
'cause we
episode
may as
50
well.
was almost 3 hours.
That's
Yeah,
not
that
the
was
one.
the second longest one.
Yeah, that one was not boring.
That one was great.
Yes.
I gotta watch that one.
I know.
That if you only ever watched one,
Yeah, that would be
That
a
would
good
be-
summary of our podcast. If you want an entrance into our podcast, that's a good one.
yeah, that was a wild time.
Watch Jeremy try and hold it together.
What number are we on now?
Yeah, I really did try. I know. What, 87?
82.
No, we're farther than that.
Pretty sure it's 82.
I think we're farther than that.
So we're only
Check
like
after.
4 months away from episode 100.
Less than.
Cool. I mean, if it's 82, then it's
Oh,
over
no,
4
you're right.
months, but
Yeah.
or exactly 4 months.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
fair.
we're a little closer than that, but
Man,
we'll see
good at
after.
math.
But yeah, we've been doing this for a long time now.
Yeah,
it's
we're
insane to
skilled.
me. But what I would like to point out is that we haven't mentioned it yet, but literally everyone here has gone through some kind of change in
Yeah,
the last.
massive change.
No shit.
It's bizarre. Like
Yeah.
this could theoretically be like all of this could be over, right? With all the change. Like this could
all be done.
well, really. Like when you
There's
go through
also
that
a
much
Third World War.
That's what I was gonna say.
So-
And here we
Well,
are.
there's
at the
always
Holocaust.
that.
yeah, that's the looming intensity in the background haze of
The background radiation.
Yeah,
is now
exactly.
World
Just
War.
woo.
That's one of those things where like I think a lot of people would love for it to happen.
Yeah, people they think that until it's
Yeah.
I know.
stupid.
We're the soft generation.
Yeah.
Soft times have made a soft generation, and our generation has forgotten how ugly war is.
Yeah.
Right? And at the same time, I don't think anyone in our generation is excited for war unless it is to stop the big bad guy.
I
Yeah,
think there
it's
might
the
be
heroic
some
thing.
like genealogical thing where it's like we've been through wars throughout our history, and so some part of people are like, ooh, I could go for a war.
Oh,
right
there's
now.
a biological
eyes are
component
just
for
lighting
sure.
up like, oof.
Yeah.
There's
I'm getting
that,
a half chub thinking about that. You know what I mean? Like it's like tantalizing to think
Yeah,
about.
it's probably
like,
Putin in that same thing right now, and he's probably full chub.
Yeah.
Sucks.
yeah.
and,
Putin's in his
we
bunker,
also
really
have
stoked.
I know.
since we haven't had a world war in a long time, we've really romanticized the idea.
Yeah,
through
unfortunately.
movies and shit, where it's like you just think of the heroic music and the camaraderie,
Yeah.
and like all the
And the purpose, you know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, the
people
purpose,
in their
yeah,
people have
Direction.
people
Yeah.
that have purposeless lives,
and
all
not
of a
even
sudden
just
this
that,
feels,
but like the hero worship of it too. Like
Yeah.
the veterans. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but like to be a veteran, it's like, oh well, I don't. If I go to war and I come back alive, then I've done what I needed to do for life.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's almost like I could retire a happy man at that point.
yeah, it's like glory, you know.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have that anymore. There's nothing for people to have that kind of feeling over anymore. It's not like, wow, what did you do during the war? It's like, we don't have that at all.
No.
Like,
So I think everyone with that mentality needs to take a quick look at what mustard gas does to a person and the likelihood that Putin's use of Geneva contravening substances, so he hasn't used mustard gas yet, but he is using liquid sulfur, which is not far off from it. So war can sound a lot of glorious things until you picture yourself burning alive in mustard gas.
Well, these people aren't picturing themselves in any of those scenarios, right?
no, they're the hero. Yeah, you're never going to be that guy. It's
That's not for you.
yeah, it's like a little man kind of brain where
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I'm going to be the big man. Those
Super
guys will
ego,
all
right?
die.
Yeah.
Those guys will all die. They're dumb. That's just stupid. I'm much smarter than that.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
to win.
Yeah, I got it.
Right. I'm going to be the hero in the war movie.
So I've been giving it lots of thought recently, just like playing it out. And really, it's a luck thing.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
like sure,
Of course.
sure. If you're someone who's career military, there's more to it than luck because you've built those skills. But if you're some numpty like us going into this,
Oh yeah, we're out of
it's
it.
just luck.
Yeah.
Like it just depends who sends you where at
There's
what
some
time.
degree of luck in everything.
That's the
really.
thing. But this is gambling with serious long-term consequences.
Because like we could be sitting here just shooting the shit, talking about war and the Rocky Mountain Tattoo, and a meteorite could strike us down. There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
amount of preparation that could. Oh, I've been training my whole life for, and then
Yeah.
you're all just gone, right?
Yeah. Boom.
Like you can't really control some variables.
I've just always said, let that thing land right on me.
Yeah,
I don't want to deal with the post of that.
I
No,
really
I
am
do.
a big fan of indiscriminate end for
Yeah, I know.
everyone.
I know.
I have to
You
say
are a
it.
big, big fan of
as
that.
many times as I can. Whenever it comes up, I
Yeah.
just think it's the cleanest way to go.
I just like for
No
me.
one to be mad at.
For me, I'm just like of the mindset that we've got some stuff to do before we get that thing. You know what I mean?
As
I
a
feel
species?
like I feel like we're hustling to try and do some things.
What is on the bucket list for humanity?
Get off of Earth.
Really?
Yeah.
You
I think
think?
get off of Earth is like one of the
Do you think
things.
we
and have
deserve
that either
to?
success or fail.
Do you think we deserve to?
Depends what you mean by deserve.
So, like, if you were doling out planets to different species,
Okay.
human beings, you didn't do so well with the one you had. I'm not giving you another one.
Yeah, like it's a different mentality though, right? Like when you're moving from one planet that exists and you've had this mentality of using it. And then now you move to another planet and it's the idea of nurturing it. And like that's the foundation of what you're doing over there. And it's like we have to build and like build for longevity. Here we've taken this like mentality really back from our naivete and the thinking that we're going to be this small level of species in terms of population number. You know, stay under 1 billion was like the thing. We only hit 1 billion like in the 60s. Something like that?
Yeah, 40s, 50s kind
Yeah.
of.
So it's like our understanding of what we would be and how we would engage with the earth was very kind of juvenile. But now if we have this understanding of what we can do and what we would be forced to do by moving out, I think the mentality moving towards that would be entirely different. How long that would maintain, who the fuck knows? But I'm just saying that it does give this idea of betterment rather than consumption.
I see us as a growing problem,
Certainly.
right? A cancerous tumor that shouldn't affect anything else, right? Like,
That's
like we
one way of
are
looking at it, sure.
We are just we consume and destroy fucking everything.
but you're going to a planet you can't consume.
That's the thing. It's a lot harder to consume Mars.
You like fucking
thank goodness, because we
Yeah.
would have already done it by now.
I'm just
right?
picturing people on Mars watching Earth envelop itself in a ball of flame, and then dying a long, slow death.
Here's
it'd be
what I
that long or
imagine:
slow.
being a Martian and looking at Earth like, please don't come here, stay away from me.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that like
That being said, who knows? Martians could be even worse.
yeah,
right?
who knows, man? Maybe
Like, it
Martians.
could be even more.
Well, that's what there's nothing left.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's just barren.
That's the last Earth.
They already blew themselves up.
But I mean, I just think mentality-wise, it's a different, and because it's out of essentialism, right? Like you have to.
Yeah.
There's just no way around that, and that type of imperative makes it so that you could make radical change in your psyche pretty quickly. You know what I mean? The problem of having to stay alive is a pretty good motivator to make sure that you're.
Invading other countries regularly.
No, it just well again, you wouldn't have any countries. You know what I mean? It's a tricky thing. And
For
you're
how
dealing with-
long though, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like,
Of course, man.
There would
Like,
have to be
it's-
some pie divvied up.
Yeah.
So honestly, I see your premise. I think if you set out on a modern day colonial mission of a new planet, I don't think you would have to worry too much about conflict for a long time.
For a while, yeah.
However, I don't see them surviving.
No.
Maybe not
the
right.
first round,
Maybe
no.
not this time.
Exactly. That's all.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. Like
End of thought.
Elon
Even
said,
Elon
like, there's
Musk
a
said
number
that.
of things that there's a number.
This
of
will
even
not be a
elements
pleasant
that
journey.
Have to be created
That's-
in order to.
A lot
make
of
this
people
feasible.
are going to die, he said.
It's like we're having a hard time sustaining population and population growth and keeping people alive and fed, even on a planet where we have breathable atmosphere
Yeah.
and soil that can grow things and the right amount of sun and an ozone layer to protect us from solar flares and
not an
I feel
average
like-
of minus 52 at night.
We get to Mars a little like
Average. For
That
Mars.
sounds like less fun than a tropical island.
Yes, quite.
I feel like we get to Mars and it'll be a little like have you ever this might be a little off the beaten path, but have you ever been watching porn for a really long time and you're like, no, I haven't in a while, don't get me wrong, but like you can't find anything that satisfies you. You're just like, this is all, I've seen this is not good. I've had enough.
The amount of porn that's being made consistently.
Seriously, it's fucking. Well, what
seen all
happens is
this.
your brain gets desensitized, right? Where you're like,
Yeah, of course. Same problem with like scrolling through Netflix would have been the idea that I would have.
no,
gone
I want to go
rather
with
than
porn
just
because
scrolling through
porn does stroke a man's sense of like finding something new or
Yeah.
like
You know
the.
that it affects your brain for 3 days after you even just see pornography. Like you
I'm
just
not surprised at
engage
all.
with it?
I've done NoFap and I still think there are some benefits to that, but
Yeah, of
I'm not
course.
going to get into that right now. There is something about like discovering something like wholly new where it's like, ooh, this is, and that's why if you watch a lot of porn, you can like change your perception of reality to some
of
extent
course.
because you've seen so much strange shit. I feel like if you go to Mars, like you explore that, then it's like, okay, now I have to go further than that, right? Like it's going to be a never-ending cycle. You're never going to be satisfied with just that. So this idea that once you get there, it's going to be, I think you get tired of Mars faster than you think. You know what I mean? Like, and then it has to be the next thing.
Well,
you have
again,
to get
as long
somewhere
as it's
else.
not, as long as your imperative is there, no. As
If
soon as your
survival-
imperative is gone and then life is easy, yeah, of course.
But you could say we
But if
don't
survival
really
stays
need.
hard.
yeah, then
I'm
you're
with you
fine.
on this one.
What
Sure.
is the need to go to Mars?
There's no need.
There's none.
Exactly. So like, survival isn't good enough.
We should be
then.
building
bucket list is-
biodomes in Africa instead, obviously.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with that necessarily. And that being said, I would love to go to Mars. Like not me, but like I love the idea of
I would personally
exploring.
love to go to Mars, yes.
I love the idea of exploring other planets as a species, but like this is not a need. This is a want. And once we get that, it's like this is an attaining thing, right?
Well, I do believe we said bucket list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want to accomplish within a species lifestyle.
What does
lifetime.
their species need to accomplish? I think you
I
said
think we're giving it too much imperative.
What
you
we
know?
need to accomplish is psychedelics.
Yeah.
well,
the
that's
one.
more valuable
Psychedelics.
than Mars for sure.
considerably.
I love the eye contact with the camera now when you do that.
Yeah, it's easier to get my point across.
Just walk up to the camera so they can really
So you
look
know when
right
you're at
into
the
that.
fall of Rome here, we don't need to go to Mars, but we're going to go there because we want to.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's not like our planet is falling apart and we need to go to another planet before. You know what I mean?
Arguments could be made.
And
Well, those arguments have been made.
And I shouldn't bitch too much because, like, the guy made Starlink, and I think that is fucking
Cool.
brilliant and moving the human species forward.
Yeah, it really is.
Right? Like, as much as I hate what the internet's doing to a lot of people and a lot of cultures, I still think it's super important to get us all on the same page and move us forward.
Yep.
I still think global internet can bring us a shot at global peace. So I think he's moving the whole species forward doing that. I may disagree with Mars, but I shouldn't diss the guy because he's doing good shit.
I
he's
don't
shooting shots, you know?
necessarily
He's shooting fucking
agree
shots.
disagree with Mars, but I don't think that it's a priority.
No.
Necessarily.
It's not a philanthropic purpose, you know?
So that's one of those
I
things.
feel
though,
like Mars is like the ice cream you eat after dinner. You know, you got to eat your dinner first, though. You don't want to just be living on ice cream.
At the same time, he is a guy that is looking after what I would call the minutia. So, creating an electric car wasn't an imperative, but it's an inevitable. So he was looking at that. The Starlink thing wasn't an imperative, but it was inevitable. So he's looking at that. The tube thing, Boring Company. I don't even know if that's going anymore, but that's kind of
Carbon nanotube?
no. The Boring Company. So it's the tubes underneath LA and stuff where you have your shuttle your cars through.
Yeah.
Which I don't know where that's at. The solar panels for the houses, that's not essential, but it's eventually, and so he's looking at it.
Well,
and then the Mars thing.
Essential.
No, not yet. We don't have the ability. Like it's in like that's why I'm saying it's inevitable, right? Like because it's like it doesn't help anybody really now, other than a very small scale. But in its eventuality and making it mainstream, it does.
To have it, which we're going to need it, you have to start now.
Yes,
Right?
Because like what he did with Tesla that he figured out before anybody else was you had to make it cool. The first thing he built was a fucking sports car. It's like, oh, okay, we got to make it cool. We got to make people
if
think
it's
that
not
this is
sexy,
cool.
no one's interested.
Yeah. So it's just one of the because all the other ones up until then were stupid.
Like the fucking power truck.
Like a Nissan
Fuck, is it
Leaf
called the
looks
Cyber
like
truck?
terrible.
That thing looks like every drunken man's fantasy.
100%.
Like that's
mine included.
It reminds me of like an action hero movie. Like it's,
100%. As soon as he said it was bulletproof and could survive a nuclear blast or your money back, I was like,
That's good marketing right there,
but
right?
this is what I mean. Like he's this guy that looks at these things that are not, I would say, not essential at the time, but they will be long term. Like he's a good long term thinker, and Mars is one of those.
Wow.
It's not necessarily that it's like essential or imperative, but in terms of where our species is going, if you're going to say we're going to be on Mars in 50 years, everybody would go, yeah. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
that's-
it's just like, oh yeah, because we
Anything
progress
you
so
say
fast.
50 years from now, we can agree with because most of us won't really be there to care.
And
or if
even
we
him.
are,
Even him.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a great possibility that he doesn't make it to that point.
I think you say 5 years and it's scary for people because they can imagine themselves living there.
But we used to do this, right? Like it used to be, oh, okay, we're going to build a cathedral and it's going to take 300 years to finish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and the guys doing it won't ever see it completed. And it's just, we need this, so we're going to do it.
People don't have that vision anymore.
I've
right?
toured enough old
Well,
pyramids
your
and temples and
bodysuit has
shit.
to be done. Every fucking tattoo you get.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you're done now.
I know. Yeah, even last night there are people who were like, "Well, that's not going to age well." What part of this don't you understand?
Yeah.
How many times are you going to say that and then see it's a completely different thing in like a month or two?
I'm just saying the Mars thing is the same.
Yeah, people have such limitation on their vision.
Or we use that same technology and resources to build biodomes in Africa.
So hang on, you're using it in the way that I'm saying is, so that's more of an imperative.
No, I know.
And he's saying, I don't do imperatives.
And I'm still taking a diminutive approach, no, a reductionist approach.
Sure.
Yeah, just for the sake of argument.
I'm just saying his way of thinking might not be good for that. in which case he might not entertain things like that.
So maybe
Just like
that's
with
someone else's job.
Yeah, because what he said was like, okay, give me your plan and I'll fund it for stopping global hunger. If all
Yeah.
it takes is money, I have that.
Yeah.
And where are we with that? You know what I mean?
Oh, it's too complex a problem. You can't make one plan to fix it.
No.
It's like making one
okay,
plan.
That I kind of disagree with. That it seems like
That was a non-offer because he knew no one was going to come up with that
Exactly.
plan.
That's my tact.
this is where
precisely.
this is where I kind of disagree.
And that's not
with
even
that
a
shit.
diss of him. I just
No,
heard that and I'm like,
because
he's
you-
calling them out because he knows they don't know how to do it.
Make you can't just make a plan to fix world hunger for $5 billion because it takes $20 million of research just to make that plan, right? Like that's how the world works.
Well, they say that the plan is already there.
Who?
The guy that he was texting with.
We don't know
He's
the
written
names
that
of
the
these.
plan, but the main thing was that Elon said that plan needs to be made open source, and the funding
Yeah,
needs to be
what?
made open source.
Okay, I didn't know there's progress.
Yeah,
I
no,
actually
there's
talked about this last night.
That's the big tweet about this was just like this guy was just like, hey, you got all this stupid money. Our plan only needs this to solve world hunger, and then Elon was like, all right, fucking dope, let's do it. If you do these two things, which is open source all of it, make it so that you can see where all this money
Yeah.
goes, and you
So
have
none
this
of it's
plan
no
available
dark
for
money.
everybody. Because he hates this idea of not-for-profits being non-transparent with their funding.
so now is that moving forward,
I have no idea.
or is it all a hoax?
I
Or
doubt
is it all a
hoax.
media stunt to begin with?
No,
I don't see any
don't
of that
think-
happening.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't think they would ever make their funding or their plan open source. That idea of open source within this type of organization doesn't happen. Every time,
Which is
every
another
time it
reason
happens,
I
people
think that
critique
was
it.
a non-offer, to be quite honest with
Yeah.
you. Because there's
Yeah.
so many things that go into it where it's like, there's no way they will accept that
Yeah.
deal.
Anytime that especially funding and stuff like that comes out, guess what happens?
Yeah, but
Those
if-
companies dissolve.
But if the funding, so there's different paradigm though. If the funding hinges on it being planned this way, then you have to adjust your plan for the open source thing and conduct yourself accordingly. Of course, if you let a system build itself up and become more and more corrupt, and then you show where the money's going, yes, it's corrupt as shit. But it was never designed that way. You just slowly have actors that turn corrupt, or you slowly have bad actors get involved because they see an opportunity. But if from the beginning your source for funding hinges on the open source, on the transparency, on the accountability, then you kind of have to just have that from day one, right?
Yes.
Because if your choice is, oh, I get $3 billion or nothing, well, it sounds like you need to hire some good lawyers and find a way to go open source. Right?
I mean, yes. Really, but this is the. I think if there's going to be any progress on it, it would have to be from someone who is an Elon Musk type, starting from that perspective. I think it's just like with. I always kind of liken all this stuff to that Boyan Slat and what he's doing to clean up the ocean, like his approach to that problem, and his kind of like genuineness in it is exactly this type of like, you can't solve world hunger. You can't clean up the ocean was the shtick for a very
Yeah,
long
yeah,
time. You know what I
totally.
mean? And then it was just like, oh no, this dude and a net, I guess. And now it's like, okay, so these giant things are now getting deployed in LA Bay to clean up that area first. And it's like, so I call bullshit on anybody that sees a problem as too big or too immovable, because it's one of those like,
Which
no.
is why I'm saying, why isn't someone making the plan?
'Cause-
Yeah.
If there's $3 billion on the table to
Six.
fix, $6 billion on the table to fix world
If
hunger.
if there's
where's
nothing
the
in it
fucking
for them
plan?
though, and it can't be in the dark, then they can't take anything from it. No one
Yeah.
wants to work that hard
No,
for
I
free.
think there are lots of anthropologists.
There are lots of anthropologists.
Yeah, there's tons of them.
I think there are lots of philanthropists out there who are really excited to make a difference. Like, why does Elon want to go to Mars? I think legitimately to get in history books. Why would someone want to get $6 billion in funding and fix world hunger? To go in history books and do something good for people. I think lots of people are really excited to do good.
Just like next
And-
level clouding.
Yeah, exactly.
I fixed world hunger.
Right?
I fed
Yeah,
the world.
and you're insufferable. Are you happy? You're a miserable bastard to deal with.
more than likely, one of the biggest issues within all these things is just like the fact that we still have conflict everywhere.
No shit.
Like,
no shit.
It could be all well and good to kind of go like, oh, infrastructurally, we can do this and plant these fields, which also, like, if we're talking about what's going to fuck this planet, doing that wrong will kill us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we will destroy our soil to a place where it can't come back.
The green revolution of the 80s in Africa already did that to Africa.
Yeah. And Brazil and
that's
everywhere.
how they ended up as bad as they are now. But at least Brazil has more rainforest to cut down and farm, whereas Africa doesn't have a ton of that.
Not great though.
No, obviously. It's satire, Kevin. It's satire.
It's wild that that's a thing.
I'm glad you got my joke.
Everybody eating their fucking avocado toast. Like,
Yeah.
it drives me up the goddamn wall of being like, holy shit, man, figure out what you're doing to this world. Everybody's smearing all that palm oil shit all over their faces every single goddamn day. Watching
quinoa's a superfood.
Oh my God.
I hope Peruvians didn't have to die for this.
Oh my God, man. Like the whole
Christ.
just like oh, that shit just drives me up the fucking wall because they're doing it out of this perceived like self-glorification, like there's some sort of greatness to them because they're doing this, but they're destroying shit at a rate that we will have a hard time coming back from.
Eat local motherfuckers.
Yeah, if it doesn't grow within 100 kilometers of you, fuck off.
Local.
Yeah. Like, and if it does need to grow within 100 kilometers of you, some sort of greenhouse. Some sort of, like, Reuben's Vegetables does that all year round. They do hydroponic.
If it's getting imported, find out how it's getting made.
Yes.
Find out if it's like, sure, we need to get a lot of our fresh vegetables from Mexico. That's just how this is fucking going to be for the next decade. Get used to it. Find out if it's being done well.
But, like, depending on the vegetable, again, we have a farmer here doing it.
Yes.
And too few people know.
Yeah.
You know what
but
I mean?
he's probably also making $6 bell peppers.
No,
Yeah, no, the price has got to be way higher.
They're not.
But
I don't know why people don't do this. It costs just as much as going. Okay, it's not that it's not expensive, but it's just as much as if you go to.
To be fair though,
Salem and
can
get an
he
organic
keep up
pepper.
with the demand?
yeah.
Like
No.
if everybody started going to
Not
this,
currently,
so
no.
then there you go.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like they're trying to expand. They've got 2 of these little kiosk things. They're going to try and do more of them, but no, he has to grow.
That's what I should find a way to invest in, is that kind of operation. Like, how do I end up personally invested in a large greenhouse that's growing things here so we don't have to ship them from 6,000 kilometers away?
Yeah.
Well, 4,000 kilometers.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, it will be essential, at some point in time because, well, gas is a great example of this. You know what I mean? Like fucking.
Why can't we build a fucking refinery?
Or a pipeline?
We haven't been able to
Oh,
refine
goodness.
Like, we're Canada. We have all the oil.
Yeah.
And we can't build enough
Gas.
refineries.
I
to refine
seen
the
gas
damn
at
shit.
182 the other day.
Good. Great.
Oh, dude, I was driving back from Kelowna and I drove through Revelstoke and it was $1.99.9. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Not in the least, Kevin. We're going to 3.
Well, I got
It's fucking
that
insane.
Costco
I'm glad
card,
I'm gonna just live here.
and they're like, "Oh,
Walk.
I'm buying a small car. Like,
Oh
I'm
my
gonna
God,
do it.
yeah.
they're like, oh, you can get Costco gas now. It's cheaper than the competing brand. It's $1.70.
Yeah, I know. It's fucking insane, man.
So
Yeah.
we got to hear somehow by discussing the nuclear apocalypse. I
Oh
think.
yeah, always.
Yeah.
So it's just fun that while we're here discussing all of these things, there are real men in our generation who are defending their sovereign nation right now. They were born into a sovereign nation. Well, no, they were not. They are a sovereign. They're part of a sovereign nation, and right now they are defending their land from a superpower.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking bummer.
I watched Tim Dillon got this comic from Ukraine on. Did like a Skype call on his podcast, which was wild. But this guy is sitting in a bunker.
Yep.
He's like, 30, 32, something
Yeah.
like that.
He's one of us.
And he's a comedian out in Ukraine. So they had this hilarious back and forth. But he was just like, yeah, so, I can't really be a comedian. Now, if you don't have a rifle here, you kind of are nothing. So he's like, yeah, we just need sniper rifles. That's what we need.
Yep.
And like, it was just odd, this thing of like, yeah, this guy had his life. He had this kind of like, oh, I'm a stand-up comic and I'm doing the dance and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And now he's a rebel fighter guy and, has to learn about everything in regards to that in order to stay alive. And that just is what it is. It can turn on a dime. And what
Just imagine that. You've got to learn a whole new skill set, and
Yeah.
you might die.
a skill set to survive.
Yeah.
You are literally under pressure.
Yeah, but at least he can tell the guys some wisecracks and lighten up the situation, right?
Yeah, that was the funniest part. Was the crazy ass jokes that Tim was still throwing in through.
Have you
there.
guys been watching Zelensky's stuff?
Sort of.
Zelensky's a fantastic fucking leader for this time.
I know.
Like
It's wild.
I'm sure he's not a good strategist. Hopefully he's got some good strategists behind him because he's not experienced in this. But he, like, for morale and for pushing people forward, he's the fucking man.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I've been watching his daily addresses and he freaking kills it.
I gotta tell you, I've been paying very little attention to it
That's probably wise.
because I always get wrapped up in these things.
Yeah, I know.
And they drive me crazy. And I'm watching my brothers do it right now,
Yeah.
and I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole.
Don't go down that road.
And I'm prone to paranoia anyway, so it's very easy for me to assume that this is going to be
Oh, a negative.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my younger brother is hoping for the end
Yeah, that's
because it
so
would make
wild.
things easier for him.
So wild.
Right? Like he went through this devastating breakup, and he's living in my house now, and he lost his apartment, he lost his job, all these different things. And for him, he feels like it would be a relief if the end came. Like, all joking aside, like, I think it would be, because I don't think he's suicidal. I just think it would be
Tell
like
him to join the reserves.
taken out of his hands, you know?
Yeah,
like,
go. Tell him to join the reserves. Go.
I don't think he wants to do that much. Like, I think he's much more apathetic and like lazy
He's more
about
hoping
it.
we all die.
Yeah,
than
exactly.
hoping that
He doesn't
dies.
want to make any kind of a difference. He just hopes he doesn't have to get a job, right? He wants to eat microwaved Kraft dinner and smoke himself to sleep every day, and then one day just not wake up, right? Because that would be easier than the amount of work it's going to take to fix his shit right now.
Okay, I can't not, but like psychedelics. You know, if I'm talking about people that might get help from these things, that
Yeah.
So can we mist?
dude, I thought that. I thought that just over all of Russia, just miss some DMT
Well,
or something. Just be
just
like, hey,
liquid LSD.
we'll make
Do you think
everybody
it would
see
stop everything,
God
though?
for a little bit and just be like, oh, I guess I'm now an empathetic, loving
10
person.
hours of everyone kind of like their guns on the ground.
Yeah.
Here's a fun thought
Yeah,
experiment.
sweaty and
If
hot.
everybody were to be on psychedelics, do you think there'd be no more war?
It depends what you mean by that.
Well, then explain what you mean by that.
So on psychedelics.
So, like, okay,
One dose or like a dose per day?
let's say microdosing.
So I will say,
Go with
have
your
one fixed
experience.
I say you still have a segment of the population that are either sociopath or psychopath.
Yeah.
I don't know what that does to that. I've heard from different studies that it seems to amplify behaviors that would normally be like that, those type of clinical behaviors that wouldn't be beneficial for these. So you'd have to be very selective in who got it. Now, if you had the rest of the population microdosing or macrodosing, or even just like say once a year, everybody takes ayahuasca together. I think you'd probably have less people being able to be manipulated by said megalomaniacs.
Yeah,
Yeah, there'd be less cult
the
forming.
spirit of
Yeah.
independence.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because just the ability to observe, the ability to observe one's own behavior or others' behaviors is what you gain from psychedelics, and like neuroplasticity, not just
Do you
being
think that
hardened.
holds true in a mob?
Yeah.
Like, if you get 30 people who are more awake than they were together, that mob mentality doesn't set in the same way?
I think you would question why you were standing in a mob
Yeah.
first.
I know I always do.
And you're going to feel more open and ready to question this and share it with your buddy. Like, hey, man, are you sure this mob's the right way to go?
Yeah.
I've been tripping a lot lately, and I'm ready to question everything.
Yeah.
I am not stuck to the social
Yeah.
obligations that
Well,
are
it's
this
a curious
mob.
thing, though, because everybody's always talking about waking up and revolution and overthrowing and all this shit. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's just purpose.
but that's
Everyone wants purpose.
that would be a mob, right? So like you would end up at the same spot again.
Yeah.
Like, I would imagine anyway.
People are
No,
lightly
no.
upset with their government and ready to overthrow it. And like, whoa, overthrowing a government, like a minority group overthrowing a government is how you get fascism. Like, whoa, slow down. Let's walk easily here.
Yeah.
Let's be careful how we do this.
We'll overthrow this authoritarian leader by implementing an authoritarian leader.
yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, but ours will be better though.
Yeah, we
That's
got
right.
it.
It'll be fair.
This has never been done in history.
No, I've heard people on like both ends of the political spectrum, on multiple ends of the political spectrum, kind of share the same thing with me. How like, oh yeah, well if there's a revolution, we overthrow this and this happens. I'm like, that the leaders who are doing things now
Allie, would you mind grabbing the door?
got there by being voted in by the people. So
Yeah.
Do we understand that?
Yeah.
No. And
okay.
like it's the same type of people that just don't want to play.
So you're gonna have your revolution and then change everything, even though the people don't want that.
Time is it?
Aha.
Nine.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, we got time. So my thing is always, we're always going to end up in the same place we are
Yeah.
now again. So better is to operate from within, right? But
Yeah. You
but
gotta
it
play
takes
the game or you don't.
But it takes fucking forever. And there's so many things that can happen along the way where it's like you're going to just end up probably becoming part of the problem, right? Like
Sure
all-
sounds like it.
It's the kind of game that's almost impossible to play.
Yeah.
Because by the time you get to a position where you could influence change, you're part of the problem that people want to get rid of.
Potentially, yeah.
and as soon as you've become so single-minded as to work toward the same goal as a million other people, you've had to be reductionist to the point where now you're missing the cons to your perspectives. Because no matter what direction you're going, there's always a downside, there's always some negative, and once you get a simplistic enough goal, well, all of a sudden there's all kinds of room for it to go poorly.
So how do we come to a different result then?
Well, the whole thing has to be approached from a place of health, right, rather than a place of unhealth. Because one of the difficulties with any of these things is, if we're talking in terms of psychology, like the ability to maintain psychological health and then engage with these situations, or be stuck in a state of psychological unhealth and then engage with same situations, and that's what we've been doing. You know what I mean? Like widely, we are a society that doesn't understand their emotion or the ability to process emotion, and then they don't understand that they are being led two directions by emotion. So it's one of those, if you were in a place of psychological health, you could potentially navigate those same situations with different results.
So-
Would be my hope.
My thing is, I've always wondered, like it's always been something that I've been stuck on, is like I believe in the power of an individual to change things about themselves. How come you can't scale that out to groups then?
The only way to scale it is at an individual level.
Yeah, so like you would need then every individual to be able to make change.
Majority.
To make
Sorry, not even a majority.
what
You'd
what
have to
kind
have
of a majority would you need?
You'd have to have a significant amount of people. I would say 10% of the population. If you get 10% of the population, say, microdosing and on a place of psychological health,
And doing good research,
well,
better research.
So here's one.
some actual research would be cool, like balanced.
Yeah, but in increasing their priority of good information gathering and
Well, that
gathering
would be
information
a-
from
that
multiple
would
Is
be
it
sources.
a-
harder for a group than it is for an individual?
Of course, yeah.
Like even if every individual within a group is open to change.
We've never seen that.
I'm then theorizing. Why have we never seen that?
Well, most of the time, like when you're dealing, the easiest way to look at this would be the people giving it would be the cults, right? They're the ones that are projecting that they have the answer in the better route, the more healthy way. And those are almost always forwarded by a megalomaniac. You know what I mean? Like they're usually groups that are established initially under the guise of searching for health and prosperity and things like that, but it's marketed from people that are in a state of unhealth mentally to people that are in a state of unhealth mentally that are all searching for some way of an external force fixing them, rather than them taking personal responsibility and accountability for their own health and being. So the examples that we've been given in terms of groups are very poor in that respect, as a whole. So I just think the problem is like when you have when the numbers are out of balance that way with that much, like because you kind of need to like, what's the reason that you buy a new thing? You know what I mean? Like, you can get marketed to, sure, but the
base
easiest
reason
way
to fill a need, typically.
well, fill a need, but in terms of product selection, one of the biggest components of that is like having someone that you know be engaged with that same thing. It's like confirmation bias, right? Like, it's like, oh, he's got it and he likes it, and therefore it's fine for me. The decision made is like I'm using his decision making skills to interpret my own. So, if positive psychological change is that decision making process, the more people that are within the environment to somebody that has that will help them affect change as well within themselves, because they'll be an example of someone that's an odd man out that's in benefit from something. You know what I mean? Like, so say you're just take this into a very specific segment of a population. Say you're in a veterans group.
Sure.
And you're in a group that's just people that are survivors with PTSD, and you're in a group of 10 guys. One of those guys goes to get MDMA therapy, and now he's cured from his
I'm
PTSD.
glad you brought it here because this is exactly what I was intending for you to bring it.
Yeah, I know. Leading me on. But just say you've got that 1 in 10, right?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden that 1 in 10, they meet and talk together, and that guy's different. And that 9 remaining look at that 10th and just kind of go, okay, what's he doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a big enough change within that 10% of that population to make it really significant. You could if you expanded that, and you a group of 100, and that one person, now all of a sudden that person still gets segmented down into 1 in 10. Because the 1 in 100, all of a sudden that one person only has a certain amount of weight within that group. It's like, oh, well, he's just that. You can do all of that type of shrug off thing. But when the group gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and then a significant change happens within that person, that is the thing that I would believe would affect the most change.
Now, I have a selfish reason for wanting it to go here.
Cool.
Is my younger brother, who now lives with me, he smokes a good deal of pot.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And Sarah really hates it.
Yeah.
But like, she's not hating it intellectually; she's hating it emotionally.
Yep.
And like, I'm pretty indifferent because I don't smoke pot.
Depends what he's using it for, right?
Sure, but
You've just described him as a person that's in a current state of mental unhealth.
sure, but hers has nothing. Her
Yeah, of course. Hers is it's the
apprehension
devil's
has
lettuce.
nothing to do with any reason why he's using it.
Yeah.
And my defense doesn't either. My defense is like, well, he's not doing anything wrong.
Sure.
Like, necessarily not.
Would it be different if he was drinking?
For me, yes and no. I think I would prefer him to be smoking pot for sure.
Okay.
Like, because I have no apprehension. People can do whatever they want as far as I'm concerned. Sarah's much more rigid. How many people need to change their viewpoints on something before she starts to? Because it seems
Not
as
many
if
more.
it's impossible to get her to move on this subject.
I just would give you an example of my parents. My parents are heavily
Her
religious.
parents are even more so than her, obviously.
Well, and my parents are heavily religious. They would never have looked at any of this stuff. And they send me articles about this shit now.
Yeah, that's
Like-
what you've told me.
So like I remember my mom sent me this, like, I don't know, Newsline or whatever thing on ketamine therapy. And I messaged her back and said, like, that's PCP, right? Like, that's
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah.
That's the thing that you guys were really scared of in the 90s. You thought that was killing everybody for some reason.
I have such a hard time where I'm pretty indifferent on most of these sorts of issues. I like to be very gray and very open to, like, we did the one podcast, right? I've
Yep.
done it one other time before that. And I've smoked weed before. I'm not hard-lined against anything. I don't think that that's a good way to live your life, to be that hard-lined.
you're-
And next week on the Remy Show, we're smoking crack.
Well, hey, fair. But
Well, I would say if you're using anything to escape from your life on a consistent basis, that's probably poor. If you're using something
Sure.
to engage with your life, that's probably
you're
good.
approaching it from an intellectual point.
Emotively too.
So like you can say that, but that's not really where she's coming from, right? That's
Totally not.
Her denial of it is
'Cause she's straight edge, right?
yeah.
That
and
means
it's
any alterance of your
and
ego
literally,
is
and
bad.
it's frustrating to deal with for me because I can't be that structured, right?
Just get her into the shop drawing, and I will get her on mushrooms.
I don't necessarily want her to do it. What I'm trying to get her to is acceptance that it's not that bad or like it's not a big deal.
Except that it helps some people.
Even that much, like seems like it's going to be impossible. Like, but like
I'm more balanced if I have some outlet of intoxication.
Yeah, of course.
sure.
If I can be regularly intoxicated in some way, not crazy intoxicated, but some intoxicant helps me balance and chill the fuck out.
Well, we
That's
all
what
have
they're
their
used
things
for.
that balance us.
exactly.
Right? Like there's things that balance me that wouldn't make sense to anyone else.
Getting tattooed.
So like my whole opinion is like, who am I to judge?
Yeah.
Right. And I can't, it makes me increasingly frustrated with her when she takes those hard lines because it's like,
Yeah. It's just fear, man. It's just fear and like it's trying to maintain ego.
so,
That's
but
all
how
it is.
many people need to go down this path, experience it, have a positive result before we can get that person, that last person?
We're already there, man.
It's not
It's
about her.
inevitable now. Yeah.
No,
it's-
I know.
She doesn't have to change her opinion. It's not about her. She just has to not hinder other people from using it in a balanced way.
That's why weed was illegal for so long. Like,
Yeah.
weed was a really good toe in the water for our country.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as that legalized, that proved the rule for a lot of things. Like Vancouver just did a testing program where an organization has funded giving people that live on the streets clean drugs. So they are getting a legal supply of crack, methamphetamine, and heroin.
This is
to
all
prove that
good.
drugs aren't bad.
We're skipping over my last part of this.
Oh, sorry.
So the people that we can't influence to come along, we leave them behind
No, it's
because
it's
then
there-
what happens?
So it's a processing of fear, right?
I've got a tangent to go on to on the subject, actually, just
Sure.
to metaphorize it by using a different example. So, people who can't handle progress in the sense of gay rights in government.
That's a good one too.
Rainbow
Yep.
sidewalks, whatever. They're burning their tires on the rainbow sidewalk. They're leaving a bunch of anti-pride shit online, whatever. When the whole time, like, it's not about you. I know that somehow you're scared and hurt and anxious, but it has nothing to do with you.
Well, of course it does, though.
But
It's a
what
challenging
Scott's
of their
saying is
belief
exactly
structure.
what I'm talking about.
that's what
Because
I'm talking about,
when you
exactly.
leave a bunch of angry people on the other side and you just go, well, fuck you, you're done. If you can't come
But-
with us, we'll forget about you.
But
They
those
get
people were angry about seatbelts once upon a time.
sure.
The only
But
okay.
progress happened,
So
and
what
we're
do you
here now.
What do you do to deal with a fear?
Civil war.
Sure.
Most people run
nuclear
from a
holocaust.
fear.
What do you do to deal with a fear?
Invade
It's
Ukraine.
wild that we don't know what this is.
Buzzing.
I've got more of these.
Most
Let's go.
people don't face the fear. If that's
Okay.
where you were going.
No. You always have to engage with your fears at some
You
point. in
should.
time. No, always, because your fears can change, and then your relationship to them changes. The only way to deal with fear is to engage with it. You have to engage with it, and you can choose to do that at any amount of level, right? Because like you have to be able to see a fear, address said fear, and find out the result of engaging with that fear at that level. So you can either have your fear confirmed, or you can have your fear alleviated through engagement. So it's like the idea of weed was a good example, but gay marriage, like gay marriage we passed in
Gay
2000
marriage makes it much clearer.
We passed we passed that bill in 2005.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened.
Yeah,
Nothing
it's
bad.
fine. It's completely
nothing
fine.
bad
Of
course.
has happened. We're now 17 years away from that.
And people are still mad about it.
well, because
Not many, but there are some, yes.
yeah, because it's still a belief, right? And it's still, and not to mention we get a lot of like our people that are in that walk tend to kind of get all of their media from like southern states
Yeah,
for some reason. So it's like
wild.
they're
Just
like,
take a shot at the South real quick.
no, it's just like that's the places where these are all contested issues still.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
what
I
mean?
know.
So it's like,
Roe v. Wade is on the
Yeah.
chopping block. Here we are.
but like those are things where it's like, okay, now this is a button to push on my belief structure, and the belief structure is one of those things that's like that's identity formed, or that's a part of your identity. So if all of a sudden your identity is getting challenged, that means you're getting threatened to die, right? Because we have two different versions of
they
death.
feel
We
their
have
culture slipping
Yeah,
through
oh,
their
for
hands.
sure.
not just culture, man. That's them. Like,
Yeah.
because we have two different forms of death. We have the regular death of our body, and we have ego death. And having the ego be challenged in any way is the same type of fear response that you get when your physical form is being challenged. Like the ability to protect it,
Yeah,
you get
those
your limbic system
linchpin
involved.
arguments that you need
Yeah.
to hold on to. What
just
am I
your-
without this?
It's just your survival system. You know what I mean? And the only way that you can combat that for survival system is to have it engaged and then to move past it. And those are the things that as we move past these things, those are the progresses that you're going to see. You know what I mean? Like, but you can't get mad at people for having an active limbic system. Like in our history, and it will still come into play that those things save lives. But it's just when it's engaged in the wrong areas, that's not necessarily their fault, but it is their responsibility to work through those fears. And
psychedelics.
Psychedelics will help with that because you might get a bad trip and then have to face all of your fears at once and then cry on the floor for a few hours. And that shit happens. But like for her, as our society moves forward through its own fears within these substances, she'll get challenged with them in little ways, and she'll have little tiny fear encounters and rebellions against it, and say things that she's like out of fear and anger, and then all of a sudden she'll move into that area. It will be confirmed or denied as her fear, and then she'll be able to progress. And that's all it is. Anytime I see fear, I'm just like, okay, well, it's inevitable. That's cool. It's just going to take them time.
I think the people who don't go along with it become almost embattled, though, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and I feel
Would
like
you fight for your life?
the more sure, but
Then-
the people who we leave behind becomes more and more with the passage of time.
You still keep thinking of this idea of leave them behind. It's just everybody's on their own pace. You know what I mean? It's not a matter of leave somebody behind.
could
but
give you that.
Nobody's running the race at exactly the same rate. You know what I mean?
People
Like
are
I'm
scared
way
change will be bad.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm way out on a limb in a lot of this stuff. I understand that. When I engage with the people around me in the world, I'm like, man, I can't wait for you to get up here, but I'm not going to talk to you as though
There
you're
are
up
some
here.
places I don't expect people to ever go, though.
Sure,
Right? Like I
that's fine.
don't ever expect people to necessarily understand what I'm doing.
No,
right?
they-
I don't get mad at
they
them when they
won't.
don't.
You know what I mean? Like they have their own life.
But see, to me, it's all like that. Like we don't all have to understand one another.
That's right. It's not about them. Your
so-
brother smoking weed is not about her.
That's
go-
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I go into the Stoic philosophy on that. It's not that you have to understand, but you do have to understand yourself within. So if you,
It's
if
her
you don't-
responsibility to come to terms with this situation, of course.
Yeah, because the only person that she can navigate is herself, right?
But the
And
best
that's-
way to start is by realizing that it's not about her. And then she can address her ego for what it is instead of tackling the issue, right?
But it is about her. That's the difficulty, right?
But
because
that's-
the issue is not about her, but her response is about her.
So that person's use of that is not about her, but her feelings about that person using that substance is
Yes.
on her.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's the tricky bit, right?
So it's not about that's not about her, but what she's feeling is about her.
And what she's
once-
feeling
once
is
you-
valid.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
you're
that's it's nothing that's like, oh, you shouldn't feel this way. Feel however you need to feel.
Yeah, if our message
know what
is
I mean?
you're not allowed to be afraid,
Yeah.
well, now we've got a problem.
Yeah.
Now we're telling people how to feel. That's
And not to mention-
how
I
it
think
works.
Fear
some
is
people
really
have
important.
done that though.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like
100%.
it's
100%.
that is the wrong way to go about it.
But this is the thing, like, if we're talking in terms of, like, you're going to approach society from a more healthy mental state, it will be kinder in how it delineates it delivers that type of information.
I've had
You know what I
people
mean?
over the years that will say things to me like, I bet you can't wait till the world moves enough that you could work like out front somewhere, or like you could be a server somewhere, or like, some front of house type thing. And obviously I'm doing that here, but we're in a tattoo shop. And my answer was always just like, no, I don't expect anybody to make accommodations for me.
Mm-hmm.
I did these things. I'm responsible for them. It's not the world's fault.
But in
right?
5 years, you can look the way you look and be a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Sure, but like I wasn't like, oh, one day this world's gonna accept me. Like you're gonna see. I took the responsibility for what I did, and I never expected anybody to make it okay
When that
for
day
me.
happens, you're getting laser anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, oh, it's all for nothing now. This is bullshit.
it's one of those things where I don't necessarily need the world to understand why I'm doing it,
No.
or beyond
And
my.
that's good.
But what we're talking about here is this cultural acceptance of an idea, right?
It's individual acceptance. Like, it will translate to culture, I would think. But it's an individual's responsibility to understand themselves within this world. And that's something that we don't talk about. We very much try and shape the world around us to fit whatever it is that we want to, rather than understand that we have an existence that needs to encounter this thing that is this world. And I just think that I'm hopeful that more people will move towards those things. I have a lot of hope in that respect. I don't think we would have this potential World War III in the same way. Like, it just, if you have a different perspective, I don't think it would be as, because like then you wouldn't view life in this same way. You just wouldn't engage with all these things in the same way. So I think it could move you into more healthy directions and more benefit of others, you know?
Mm.
It's my hope anyways.